you should get a warning here soon that we are recording. Let me go ahead to the next slide. So welcome to the 2024 Nonpoint Source Program Project Partners Meeting. I know it's been a couple years since DEQ hosted a partners meeting, so we are grateful that you're taking time to attend today. I am Melissa Secor. I'm the Nonpoint Source Project Coordinator, and I've been in this role since early 2023, and I work on a lot of the contractual processes with modifications. I work on the annual RFA process. I keep track of the overall 319H spending across the state. I manage our programmatic updates, such as our guidelines and specs that were updated this year, which I'll go over today. I also work closely with the Nonpoint Source regional coordinators that work with you all to manage these projects. And also on the line, who is supporting this meeting, is Stephanie Krebs, our Nonpoint Source team lead. And you can go ahead and introduce yourself, Stephanie.
Hey, good morning, everybody. As Melissa said, I'm Stephanie Krebs. I was formerly the Nonpoint Source Coordinator down here in the Southwest, and last fall I became the team lead of the program. So this is a new position for the program. We were fully staffed, so everybody's got a regional coordinator to work with you to support your projects. Excited to see have everybody here this morning. We'll see if we do these in person in the future. But look forward to hearing from you guys and answering any questions you guys have today. So thanks.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. So we will open it up to introductions for everyone on the call here in a few minutes, but I'd like to go over some quick meeting protocols. So please stay muted while others are speaking. If you want higher quality audio, you can use the telephone information that is provided in the meeting invite. Camera use is optional. I'm keeping mine on while we do introductions, but once we get into the meat of the topics, I'll turn it off then. So you're welcome to turn it on when you introduce yourself or not, it's up to you. Please communicate using the chat box. If you'd like to fill in your name and organization, that would be really helpful for tracking attendees. And also, if you have questions along the way, you can submit them in the chat box at any time. We have planned Q&A sessions after each major topic, so we can talk through things. So keep that in mind. As I already mentioned, this webinar is being recorded, so we can distribute it. You can provide it to anyone that missed, or if there's anything you want to go back to. So, and then also I will provide a PDF of the slides after the meeting. So yesterday I sent out the PDF of the agenda, and I'll quickly go through it here. We'll first have welcome and introductions. Then I'll go into our guidelines and specifications, the updates that came out in July. I'll go into our match and cost share requirements, really focusing on the new match requirements for soil and water conservation districts, and go into the difference between match and cost share. We'll go into quarterly reporting requirements, including our new reporting forms that you all should have received last month, and also documentation standards. I'll briefly go over some mapping tools that are really handy. Then we'll have an open discussion where you can bring up other points that you might have in mind. Also talk about long-term planning, so grant management, modification process, and so on. And then we'll wrap it up and have a final time for QA. I think intermixed, there might be like 3 other opportunities for Q&A during this webinar. So it's not just at the end of 3 hours. So we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk through things. So, of course, welcome to this meeting. The goal of the meeting is to provide updates about recent changes in our DEQ Nonpoint Source Management Program. we really want this to be a collaborative discussion. So we'll monitor the chat, and then during our Q&A, if you want to speak, you can raise your hand, and that will help us kind of manage things so we don't talk over each other. But obviously you can unmute and talk during that time. So we really have a lot to cover. So if certain topics need more time, then we can think through if we want to have a meeting about that specific topic in the future. So let's first go through introductions with everyone on the call. I'm going to handle it where I have a list of the organizations that said they would be attending, and then I'll just go in alphabetical order for those organizations. And you can unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Just looking for short introductions, your name, organization. It'd be good to mention what kind of work and practices are involved in your project, so others, if they have the similar practices, they know others that are working on similar things, and maybe you guys can reach out to each other if you have any needs. So again, like I said, this is the time if you want to turn on your camera, you can, and I will turn off my camera once we're done with these introductions. Why don't we actually first start with DEQ. So I have Ashley here with me today, so you can start.
Okay, Ashley Went. I'm in the implementation planning portion of our Nonpoint Source Management Program. So I work closely with the Nonpoint Source regional coordinators to do the planning side of things, and then I also assist them if they have technical questions related to BMPs.
Great, thank you. And Stephanie already introduced herself. We have Autumn on the line.
Good morning, I'm Autumn Matney. I'm the Nonpoint Source Coordinator for Southwest.
And other DEQ people. I see Madison on the line.
Good morning. I'm Madison Whitehurst. I'm the Nonpoint Source Coordinator for the Piedmont region and then parts of Valley, so kind of Central Virginia area.
Great. And Kim?
Good morning, I'm Kim Romero. I'm the Nonpoint Source Coordinator for the Blue Ridge Regional Office and parts of the Valley Regional Office.
Great. Okay, Christy?
Good morning, I'm Christy Woodall. I work in the Southwest office, but I support our NPS coordinators statewide with our GIS resources, including our mapping applications.
Okay, thanks, Christy, for being here. And Justin?
Hey, good morning. I'm Justin Williams. I manage the Office of Watersheds and Local Government Assistance, which includes within the Watersheds program, our Nonpoint Source Grants and Implementation team.
Right. Anyone else from DEQ that I missed? Okay. Well, I'll give a chance for anyone else that might have joined during these introductions. So why don't we start with Culpeper Soil and Water Conservation District?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, just checking. Good morning, everyone. Greg Witchallen's here, District Manager over here at Culpeper Soil and Water. Somewhere on this call, Cheyenne Sheridan, who's working in our newest grant area, is on the call as well. We've been implementing NPS 319 grants for quite a long time. Currently have 5 different project watersheds. I guess I should say we're spread. The district is spread across 5 counties here, so we're a pretty large geography. Less so these days. We implement ag BMPs on 319 money, but historically we've done quite a few of those. The same ag BMPs that the state cost share program funds, more or less. And always, and more currently, we are big implementers of septic BMPs. We've got, as I said, numerous project areas. And since, we've had some other funding mechanisms as well for septic, but over the time, word has gotten out that we have a septic cost share program. So we are way appreciative of the 319 funding that comes over here. And does well.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg and Cheyenne, for being here. All right, why don't we go to Clinch Valley Soil and Water Conservation District? I think I saw Siobhan join earlier.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi there.
Yes.
This is Siobhan Nishida. I'm with Clinch Valley Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm the district manager here. I also have Jeff Mutter, who is our 319 lead on our projects here, and Brandon Blevins, who also works with our Ag BMP projects. We mostly focus on stream exclusion projects with the alternative water systems. That's what we've done historically in the past and continue to do. Also been a long-term participant with y'all's program. We're currently doing 2 different watersheds, the Middle Clinch and Copper Mall. And we appreciate the opportunity every time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, Friends of the Rappahannock. I saw Brian join earlier.
Yeah, Brian Hoffman. I'm the Deputy Director at Friends of the Rappahannock, here representing the Rappahannock River Roundtable today. Work across 18 counties, in Central Virginia, from the Blue Ridge down to the Bay. Support a number of different partners with community outreach, engagement, project development for various 319 grants and projects. Ranging from septic, stormwater management, urban BMPs, some ag stuff in the past. Yep.
Great, thank you. All right, George Washington Regional Commission.
Good morning. This is Kate Gibson, Deputy Director with the George Washington Regional Commission. We actually have a 319 grant that I guess technically started yesterday. So that will be our first 319 grant, but it will be focused on septic repair and replacement. And we also have Brianna Heath here with us. Today is her 3rd day with GWRC, but she came to us from the Northern Neck PDC, so she's familiar with this work as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, happy to get that started. All right, Holston River District.
Hello, I'm Hunter Wyatt with Holston River Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm also here with Ethan Keene. We have a pretty robust TMDL program that specifically is focused in the North Fork watershed, the Holston River right now. Our septic is a big hit here. It seems to be growing, and we continue to have a pretty thorough ag program as well. We're hoping to expand it into some of the other watersheds in the county moving forward over the next year or 2. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All right, John Marshall.
Yes, Melissa Allen here. I'm the district manager for John Marshall Soil and Water District. We have, I guess, nearing 20 years of experience with the TMDLs. The various projects we actually have one ongoing, and then we are a subcontractor on one for stormwater practices with Friends of the Rappahannock, and then we actually have one that just started yesterday for septic only and several other watersheds in our county. Thank you.
Excellent. All right, JRA.
Good morning. I'm Justin Doyle with James River Association. My wonderful colleague Karen Sterling is also participating today, and we're representing the Greening Richmond Public Libraries project, through which we're reducing stormwater runoff at library grounds through the planning, design, and implementation of green infrastructure site plans that feature fire retention, conservation landscaping, and in some cases, permeable paver systems. It's good to be with you all today.
Great. Thank you. All right, Mountain Castles District.
Good morning, everybody. Tim Miller, Mountain Castle Soil and Water. We've been doing 319 grant in residential septic in the Roanoke River watersheds of Botetourt County.
Great, thank you, Tim. Okay, Mid-Penn PDC.
Louis Lawrence with the Middle Peninsula PDC. I'm not sure if any other team is on here or not, but welcome. Thank you all.
I'll give it a second if anyone else is there. Unmute yourself. Okay, we'll move on to New River Conservancy.
Is that the New River Land Trust?
Yes,
So
you're next. We also have some.
Okay, so my name is John Eustace. I'm with the New River Land Trust, and we work in partnership with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to do stream restoration work, and then also in partnership with the Skyline Soil and Water Conservation District for the livestock exclusion piece of it.
Thanks, John. And let's see, from New River Conservancy, we invited Tom Saxton. Are you on? Or anyone else? Okay. Let's go to New River Soil and Water Conservation District.
Hi, I'm Emily Coombs. I'm with New River Soil and Water. Tracy Goodson is also on. She's our district manager. We do septic and stream bank stabilizations for Elk Creek and Chestnut Creek.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, next, the New River Valley Regional Commission.
Hi, good morning. My name is Afi Fankin, and I'm with the New River Valley Regional Commission. And some of the work that we've done here we have the watershed roundtable, and also we in the last year we completed some of the Grab Creek watershed beautification and protection project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from that organization on? Okay, we'll go to Northern Virginia Regional Commission.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. My name is Rebecca Murphy. I'm the Coastal Program Manager at Northern Virginia Regional Commission. Our current funding focuses on implementation of the Virginia Salt Management Strategy, so including education and outreach and coordination with our localities around winter snow and ice management. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, Peter Francisco District. Okay, I don't think anyone is on there. Piedmont.
Good morning. This is Deanna Fair. I'm the district manager at the Piedmont Soil and Water District. We have 2 grants for the residential septic program that focuses on 10 watersheds, and we have been working with these grants for many years. We also have Ty Smith. He couldn't be here this morning. He may be able to join us later. He's one of our conservation technicians, and he's been picking up a lot of the workload for the septic grant.
Great. All right, Rockbridge.
Hi, this is Spencer Suter. I'm Rockbridge County Administrator, and we've got a 319 grant that we've been fairly complicated grant that we've been working on for several years for the Little Calf Pasture River.
Great. Thanks for being here. All right, nearing the end. Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water District.
Good morning, Lisa Hyatt with Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District. Also on the call is Sarah Sen. Our district is based in Charlottesville. Right now we have three 319 grants going in 3 separate watersheds. 2 of those have ag and septic components and 1 is just septic. Thanks.
Excellent. Thanks, Lisa. All right, Upper Tennessee River Roundtable.
Hi, this is Carol Doss, and I'm Executive Director for the Roundtable in Southwest Virginia. Right now, we have 2 319 grants, one for the Upper Clinch and one for the Middle Clinch. And for both grants, we partner with the Tazewell Soil and Water Conservation District on stream exclusion and water systems, permeable pavers, and outreach programs. And then for the Upper Clinch, we also partnered with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Partners Program and Canaan Valley Institute to do stream restoration and stream bank stabilization and buffer plantings.
Thank you, Carol. And Western Virginia Water Authority.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Baumgardner, and I administer a 319 grant for the Water Authority. I'm also a director on the Blue Ridge Soil and Water Conservation District.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. All right, I'll open it up to anyone that didn't get to speak earlier. You can introduce yourself. Okay. Turn off my camera here and we can get this started. Again, thank you everyone for being here. We really appreciate your time. So let's start with our NPS BMP guidelines and specifications. And well, as I mentioned earlier, there will be time for Q&A after each main topic. So I'll go through these and we'll have a Q&A specific to the guidelines and specifications. And again, you can enter your questions in the chat as you think of them, or you can wait until the Q&A session. It's up to you. So as you know, the NPS BMP guidelines and specifications are the documentation that 319H subrecipients must use to administer the cost share assistance for ag, residential septic, and urban BMPs. And it was time for us to update the document. So last year, DEQ worked with a committee of internal and external partners to get input about the program and consider possible improvements. So as a result, we had some really beneficial updates that became effective July 1st of this year, 2024. So this slide lists the documents that were updated, including the BMP guidelines, specifications document, the BMP contract, the septic guidelines template, and the septic inspection form. I'll go into more details about the changes to each of those documents in the following slides, but I did want to mention all these documents and many others are found on the Nonpoint Source DEQ website, where there's a snip of it there on the right, and then the slide does have a link to it. So you go to funding, grant, and project resources, and then you select the drop down for NPS project management materials, and that's where it has all these updated materials and many others that can be helpful. And again, if you have any questions about this or can't find it, contact your regional coordinator and they can help you. So let's first key into the key changes with the BMP guidelines and specifications, first with the guidelines documents. And this is split into 2 slides. And it provides a summary, but the actual guidelines document does have section 5 that has a detailed list of all these changes. So I'll first talk about changes with the BMPs. So with agricultural BMPs, since DEQ follows the VAX manual for our procedures, specifications, and cost share caps and rates, we updated our guidelines to reflect the new DCR cap of $300,000, where it was $100,000. So you'll see that change. Now for our septic BMPs, we increased the septic cost share rates and caps And I will go into a lot more detail about that in the next few slides. And for the urban BMPs, we clarified which VCAP requirements must be followed for the 319H funded urban projects. That includes following the VCAP specifications and cost share rates, but 319H funded urban projects don't need to complete the VCAP application process nor the VCAP steering committee approvals. However, we did explain that there is a caveat that if your urban BMPs use VCAP funding to help pay for the BMP, so if you're using both 319 and VCAP, then you'll need to coordinate with VCAP to complete their application and approval process for that portion of the funding. So the second slide about the guidelines beyond BMPs, we updated variance requirements for residential septic BMPs. So DEQ will consider variances for all participants, not just those that are above the 50% median income threshold. That was the old rules. So only the septic portion of the variance section was updated. So again, that's focused on septic. Next topic we updated was operation and maintenance plans, O&M plans. We clarified language, including how the BMP contract part 3 can serve as the O&M plan and associated landowner agreement for ag and septic BMPs. We also clarified language about O&M plans, including how they must be obtained prior to the start of BMP construction. You shouldn't wait until after because a participant really should be aware of those O&M requirements before beginning. Also, we clarified how participants are responsible for retaining contractual documents for at least 3 years after the lifespan of the practice has expired. So moving on to BMP contracts and the new LOGI report. So we added language in the guidelines to refer to the new LOGI report, which is for soil and water conservation districts to document completed BMPs. And I'll go in more details about the LOGI report later when we discuss quarterly reporting. So also we specified in the guidelines that they'll be updated every 2 years. So we released them this year, 2024, so you can expect an update in 2026. So now let's move on to the specifications document that had changes listed here in the slide. So we updated the septic costing. And this really is the biggest change, and I'll show more details about that on the next slide. We also added repair of other surfaces, such as impermeable surfaces like sidewalks and driveways. We added that to various BMPs, such as the sewer connections, repairs, inspections, system installation, and we noticed we had to add this to make sure it was consistent with the guidelines. Also, the language we added ensures that this is only covered when surfaces must be removed or replaced to complete the BMPs, and it has to be fully documented to show that that's a requirement for the BMP to happen. We also clarified the addition of risers to some septic BMPs. We got feedback that that's becoming an industry standard, and our document needed to catch up with that, so we added that in there. Also, we added tree removal when it's necessary. Originally, it was only under RB3, and it actually is applicable to other septic practices, so we added that topic to the other BMPs for repairs and installation, replacement, and alternative systems. So I think it makes it more consistent and clear about what is covered and requirements for additional coverage. So let's go into more detail about the updated residential septic cost share caps and rates. And the slide provides the new cost. It's the same tables that are in the guidelines and specifications. And it became effective July 1st. So we increased the average total practice costs, and this was due to feedback from existing subrecipients and partners like you guys. And we considered and evaluated actual costs to complete BMPs recently. So I think this helps catch up with the current cost of things, given things are so expensive. Now there's a lot of numbers on this in these tables, so let's try and break it down. The cost breakdown still maintains the two key considerations of first fiscal stress and then property owner income verification. So you can determine fiscal stress using a variety of tools, but we highly recommend DEQ's environmental data mapper, the EDM tool, which has layers for fiscal stress and IP areas, which I actually will show you all later. Next, considering property owner income, our program continues to offer the minimum of 50% cost share to all participants, no matter income verification. But our funding can go up to 90% depending on certain incomes. So table 1 on the left is for areas classified as no fiscal stress. And then table 2 on the right is for areas classified as fiscal stress. And all prices, practice costs were increased in both tables consistently. So now, obviously, the guidelines and specifications provides a lot more detail on this topic. But since these became effective July 1st, we've received some questions about how to handle this change for existing practices underway. So we don't update existing agreement budgets to use these new rates. So instead, make sure you consider this when managing your budget going forward. Also for in-progress BMPs, the key is when your BMP contracts were established and signed. So determine if that occurred before or after the new costing became effective on July 1st. So practices pursued in BMP contract part 2 signed on July 1st, 2024 or after should use the updated rates. If you had a BMP contract part 2 signed June 30th, 2024 or earlier, then you continue to use the old rates that are in that contract. So considering modifications, if you are working with your regional coordinator on a new modification, it should use the updated rates. We're looking for that. And then modifications that are already in progress, if you received it or you provided it before July 1st, some we had in May and they're going to be executed here soon, those will maintain the old rates because that process was initiated prior to the effective date of July 1st. And of course, as you're implementing these increased rates, if you have questions along the way, please contact your regional coordinator and we can work with you. Okay, so far I have covered the updates to the guidelines and specifications, and those updates resulted in changes across several other program documents that are shown here. That's the septic guidelines template, the BMP contract, and the septic inspection form. So the septic guidelines template, we updated per the guidelines and specs, so we added or modified the language about tree removal, repair of other surfaces for impermeable surfaces and so on to make sure it's consistent with things that are covered in the guidelines and specs. Now the BMP contract, we clarified documentation requirements. We also reviewed it to consider necessary data, so we made sure it's only capturing key data that we need. We also added an example row, removed some personally identifiable information, PII data, which I will go into later, but we removed that from the BMP contract. So you don't have to redact it when you send it to DEQ. And also, it's updated with details about the BMP contract retention policy. And then the last one, the septic inspection form, based on some good feedback, we formatted it so it's in portrait on a single sheet to help avoid confusion with contractors. We also updated the signatory line. It was saying inspector, and that was causing some issues with contractors, so now it's contractor representative. Okay, so let's open this up for any questions you have specific to the guidelines and specifications.
I haven't seen anything come through the chat, so if anybody's got any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, I think
Looks
I
like
see
Sarah
Sarah
has
raise
her
her
hand
hand.
raised. Yep.
Yeah, Sarah has her
Yes.
hand raised. You can unmute yourself.
Can you please specify what it means variances for all? How is that going to work? What is going to be the process for that? Is that just going to be me and Lisa deciding on a variance, or are we still submitting them to you for review?
You still submit them, but you can give a variance to a homeowner that has the 50%. So it doesn't have to be income requirements.
Okay, so we still submit them to you for review. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Give it another minute here. Okay, I'll move on to the next topic. And like I said, we have time later for open discussion and then final Q&A. So of course, if anything pops up later, you can ask it. Okay, next topic is our new match requirements. So another recent change is we removed match requirements for soil and water conservation districts, and this became effective July 1st, 2024. So this only applies to agreements that are led by soil and water conservation districts. So non-districts continue to meet the 30% match standards, and that can come from technical assistance and BNPs or either one. So the reason for this change is because DCR already provides state-funded match for non-point source BMPs. And since soil and water conservation districts are within DCR, they don't need to provide additional match funding. So instead, they need to focus on providing applicable cost share amounts to pay for the BMPs. So the next few slides, I'll address the next two bullets, which is the background of covering match versus cost share, definitions and examples, and then I'll talk about impacts to your existing budgets and contractual agreements, and also the new reporting forms. So to help understand the new match requirements, let's first define match versus cost share. So match is the additional non-DEQ funds that contribute to the total project budget to pay for BMPs and or technical assistance. So non-districts must meet the 30% match requirement. And since match can be for BMPs or technical assistance, it can include work time, fringe, travel, supplies, and so on. And for BMPs, it can be for the cost share or other funding sources from your partners that contribute to complete the practice. So VCAP or VACs or homeowners, that can all contribute to your match requirement. Now, cost share is specific to BMPs, and that's the portion of the BMP costs from the various sources to pay for the actual total cost of the BMP. So that could be DEQ's 319H, VAX, BCAP homeowners, and other funding sources. So, and cost share does not involve TA, it's just BMPs, like I said. So the pie charts on the right are examples of various cost share sources that contribute to paying for a BMP. The top shows an agricultural BMP that involves funds from VAX, NIFWIF, and property owners in addition to the 319 funds. And all of that combines to cover the total BMP costs. And then the bottom right is an example of septic or urban that involves funding from the locality, PDC, and property owner, in addition to the 319 funding. So there's many ways to combine funding to cover practices. So these are just examples of it. And the point of including cost share amounts is to ensure that 319H funding isn't paying for 100% of the practice unless it's allowed for in the guidelines and specifications. So for example, septic practices with 319H funds, we can pay between 50 to 90% of the cost depending on fiscal stress and income verification. So we shouldn't see budgets that indicate 319 is paying for 100% of those septic costs. So now let's go to the next slide where I will review a couple examples. So these provide example budgets for how match and cost share can work for non-districts, which is table 1 on the left, and soil and water conservation districts, which is table 2 on the right. Now both include technical assistance and ag and septic BMPs, where in both ag BMPs have 90% coverage from DEQ funds and 10% from other funding sources. And then septic is a 50-50 split with DEQ funding and the homeowners. So looking at table 1 first for non-district budgets that include the required match, this project has a $154,000 total budget from 319 to cover technical assistance and the BMPs. And with the 30% match requirements, they provide a total of $46,000 in match funds, which increases the overall total project budget to $200,000. And notice the match funds here, it comes from both BMPs and technical assistance. Now, the bottom of this table shows the tabulation to verify that this budget meets the 30% match requirement. Now, table 2 is an example of soil and water conservation district budget that shows the required cost share but no TA match funds. So similar to table 1, the total 319H budget is $154,000 for the TA and BMPs. And then they show the estimated cost share to pay for those BMPs. Notice there's no TA match provided, only the BMP cost share that can come from homeowners, VAX, NIFWIF, and other sources. So the bottom of this table also has a tabulation to show percentage of cost share for BMPs. And now this doesn't have a requirement, but this is something we consider when we look at your budgets, along with the cost share percentages reflected per BMP. So as a reminder about ag BMPs is how we follow the VAX manual for cost share rates and caps. So if you have an ag BMP, and well, this example, it shows it's 90% covered by 319 and 10% by other funding. And that's because per the VAX manual, this particular BMP qualifies for 90% coverage. Now there are some ag BMPs that VAX covers at 100% when certain parameters are met. So for example, SL6W If it has a 50-foot buffer at a 15-year lifespan, it's covered 100% per the VAX manual. And since we align with the VAX manual, 319 would cover it at that same 100%. So let's go to a table to try and help understand how match and cost share relates to your agreement. So based on the information I talked about, you first need to determine if you need to meet the match requirements. So this table considers applicability. So the first question is if you, as the lead of the agreement, are a soil and water conservation district or not. So if a non-district leads the agreement, that's the left side of this table, you must meet that 30% match requirement. And then as said earlier, match can be used to help fund BMPs, or it can be from the TA portion of the budget. And it can come from you as a lead or your partners or homeowners to all contribute to that. But if a soil and water conservation district serves as a partner, cost share from the district BMPs can serve as match. Now, if you're a soil and water conservation district that leads the agreement, you fall on the right side, so you don't have to meet the TA match requirements, but like I said earlier, you have to reflect the cost share funding for the BMP construction section of the budget. So as a result, districts don't need to include the TA match, but the BMP portion, we should really be able to understand where it's pulling from, be it homeowners or other programs. So considering impacts, what does this mean for your existing budgets and contractual agreements? So existing agreements led by soil and water conservation districts currently include TA match in your budget, and no immediate action is needed to change that. So instead, we will remove that if and when you have a formal modification to your agreement. Now, our new reporting forms that we distributed last month reflect this change. So district budgets should only show BMP cost share and not TA match. And since it's became effective July 1st, you should be reflecting this in your quarterly report, your Q2 quarterly report due here soon. So, and globally, we changed some terminology. So everyone will see moving away from the word match, and we're more focusing on terminology like other funds that help contribute. So everyone might notice that. So let's take some time for Q&A. I see hand raised from Alfie.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. I have a question. Like, I think it's clear, but I just want to make sure. So, we're conservation. We're not, what you say. But my question is, so in the match, we have to meet 30% match, right? Most of the time, the participants were contributing more than what is required of the cost share. If like the minimum cost share is like, say, 20% for, for one of the BMPs, can that go towards the match?
Did you say that's from homeowners?
Yes.
Contributing for the BMP?
Yes. So they have a BMP, and most of the ones that have participated have over exceeded the required cost share. Well, can that go towards the 30%? That's it.
The 30%. Yeah, I believe so. Stephanie can correct me if I'm wrong, but that can help meet the 30% cost share. Even if it's not in your budget, you can report it, and then you would meet that 30% requirement early.
Yes, that's what I understand from what. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. I thought that's what I heard, so I just want to double check. Thanks.
Thank you, Abby. think I saw someone else raise their hand.
Oh, it was Louis. I think my hand went away. Your example that you used showed the 30%, but if the applicant wants to remain with the 50% cost share, that's still permissible.
Right, it's, so the 50% cost share is BMP specific, whereas the 30% match requirement is your budget as a whole.
Right, but if you are bringing 50% to the table, mathematically, you've already met the 30 if you're capturing the overmatch, which I think was the previous person's question. And so as long as you're netting to the correct match ratios at the end, you're okay. You really don't, you're not particularly worried about it as long as you exceed what you're required to bring to the table.
Right. Thank you. Give it another minute here. Well, our agenda has time for a break right now. Before we get into the meaty discussion of our new quarterly reporting, I guess, Stephanie, we're a little ahead of schedule, so we could just dive in and shift our break time. Or we could take a 10-minute break here. What do you think?
I would just go ahead and follow the agenda and take a 10-minute break. And then if we end up wrapping up early, we can do that too. But just keep following the agenda.
Okay. Okay, why don't we take a break here and make sure we're back in 10 minutes at 10:05, and then we will get into quarterly reporting. Okay, I have 10:05, so let's get back to it. Next topic is improvements to our quarterly reporting. And there's two main topics to cover: the new reporting forms and then documentation standards. And then, yeah, we have plenty of time to talk about this, but if there are more questions, and we can always decide to schedule a follow-up meeting to discuss this. So last month, your non-point source regional coordinator provided you with the new reporting forms. So we want to take some time to discuss this, since you should be using that for your 24 Q3 quarterly report. So the key changes are that we reduced the reporting forms from 4 tabs to 2. And we really focused on the critical data points that we report to EPA. Also, we really reviewed to reduce redundancy in the requested data. We know there were occurrences of inputting certain data on one slide, then you have to do it in another. So we tried our best to reduce that. So I'm going to take this time to go over an example case, and my colleague Kim Romero and I worked really closely to update these forms. And so she can chime in with any key points or clarifications that I might miss as we go through this example. So give me 1 second, and I'm going to switch to sharing a spreadsheet here. Okay. So, oops, sorry about that. Okay. So the Form A1 here combines some old tabs. So the new A1 provides space for written summary and then the data to support it. So of course, at the top here, I'll quickly go over that. Yellow is what you input, you have directions, and then we get into the meat of the reporting form that is split per task. And like I said, the first thing you do is you have a space to input your short written summary of the accomplishments, and then below it is the data to support that. Let me zoom out a little bit here. It's quite a big table. So each section or task is split. It has a section for this reporting period. So that's where you would input your accomplishments for this quarter. And then it has cumulative totals to date. So that factors in obviously the work you did this quarter, but also throughout the entire project. And then on the right, we have cumulative goals. This is shaded white because DEQ inputted that based on your contract. And so we also added some columns to help with general like project management of percent completes for both, since this is ag, you have for a number of BMPs, and then you also have your extended BMPs, and you can see the percentage complete. So that can help everyone along the way. Let's go down here. So like I said, they're split into tasks. So task 1 is ag, task 2 is residential septic. So you'll write your brief written summary and input your data down here of any BMP contracts written, BMPs completed. Go down, task 3 is urban. It's all set up the same way with this reporting period, cumulative totals to date, and then cumulative goals. Some of them have some additional information in the bottom. For example, residential septic, this is tracking how you have your septic program guideline updates that are due every year. So just various tracking requirements that we need to report to EPA and also to help understand what's going on with the project. So now here's task 4, pet waste. It is not yellow because this example project does not have that BMP. So we removed the shading and we hid all the detailed cells there, but we don't want to hide this just because it's nice to keep the tasks in numerical order. So that's why you will see that, but it should have a NA not applicable and it will be yellow, so you can disregard. So let's go to task 5 for education and outreach, and there were quite a few changes in this section to try to add consistency in how we view and track all the various outreach activities that you do. So again, we have this reporting period, cumulative and cumulative to date, and goals. So it's generally set up where we have site visits and then outreach events and then attendees per outreach event, since EPA likes to get that data. And then it's split into outreach materials and outreach events detailed information. So you'll see outreach materials dash and then details about it. And so this one we know you, this example said they have a goal of 3 releases of outreach materials. They have outreach events for ag. They want to attend 3 events. There's a target completion date. And then when you enter this in, the data, the reporting data in during your quarterly report, obviously, if you have events that are in a goal, that you have several in your project period, you're going to have to list multiple completion dates. And so there's a variety of ways to do it. In this example, we have it written down sequential or written down more vertically. You can figure out what way works for you and your regional coordinator to make sure it's just tracked properly and it's fully understandable. So let's go down. Task 6 is water quality monitoring for this example. Those of you that don't do that, again, it won't be shaded yellow, it'll be NA, and then the details will be hidden. And then we still have this administrative reporting and milestones table to help track your reporting requirements, your meeting requirements, when you have to do your closeout review, your final report, and so on. So this should look pretty familiar. Now there might be some entries in here that you previously didn't report in the past. So for example, in this example, they've gotten through Q2, but look how it's missing this date here from January. So if you see this in your new reporting forms, please populate missing data. Another example I think I put in here up in septic is it's missing a date for the updated septic program guidelines. So again, review this carefully, enter missing data, don't assume it's right, and enter it. Now, if there's a case that you truly don't have that information for various reasons, please just note why. A lot of these have comments. It's hard to tell if we get this back, if it's missing data, if it's because you don't have it or it was just missed. So if you don't have it, please just enter a comment so we know you reviewed and addressed it and we understand why. So we don't have to make any assumptions and we don't have to ask about it. Okay, now let's move on to the B1 form.
Okay, can I ask a question? This is Deanna from Piedmont District.
Yes.
On this reform under this reporting period for whatever BMPs it is, It says extent of BMPs completed, column D. What does that mean?
So let's go over to these cumulative goals. So this is a SL6W on row 15. The number of BMPs that they proposed in the original budget was 3. And those 3 will result in 6,000 linear feet of stream exclusion. So it just depends on the BMP. Like
the extent is going to be that 6,000.
It's the extent is that 6,000 linear feet, or there's situations with like acreages, where the one down here is acres of area planted, and so on. This extent is not in the septic section or other sections, only applicable to ag.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm just concerned with ag, so I didn't see that in the residential septic section. You don't have that column then of
correct
BMPs complete. Okay. Okay. Sorry about that. I didn't see that.
No worries. Okay, so let's go to Form B1. Starting at the top. Again, I'm sure this is small and hard to see, but I know we distributed your forms already, so if needed, you can open your own and try and track along, but I'll do my best to make sure you guys can see it. So this is similar to the previous B1, where we track your budget, current expenditures, cumulative expenditures, and then your unexpended project balance, but we added this financial narrative overview cells to this tab. I think previously it was in A1 or something like that. So we added it here so you can enter narrative information about TA personnel on the same exact row. So it all connects, it's in one place. Now, the directions for that financial narrative overview say that if you aren't going to provide details here in these narrative cells, if you could still direct us, write down in those cells where that information is provided in attachments. So we know where to find it. Sometimes we get a lot of attachments. It's hard to figure out where things are. So if you could provide a little direction about where they are in the attachments, and that could be providing the file name or what you think is best for us to be able to find it easier. So this has basic information up top about the project with your coding and your address and whatnot. Then we do have some additional yes, no questions here about if you update your contact information above during that quarterly report, please tell us. Also, we want to key into indirect costs. So if you have that, please note it there, and then write your agreement dates and rates so we can make sure we're working with the correct agreement. And then we move down to DEQ funds, and this is very similar. We didn't make changes to this section, so it should be consistent with your previous B1 form. Again, with the project budget, you add this your quarterly expenses and expenditures under current expenditures. The cumulative is what you have expended throughout your project period so far. And then column H is your remaining budget for the 319 funds. Now, scrolling down to this section, we did make changes where everyone had it, where it was for match, but like I said earlier, we changed it to other funding. So this is either for cost share or match for non-districts only. So in this example, it's a district example, so you can see how we hit the cells for TA and remove the budget and expenditure. So this is only tracking the BMP budget and expenditures. If you are a non-district, it should still show your TA budget, what you've expended, and so on. Now let's scroll down to the last table in the B1. And this is a summary of allocated, unallocated, and spent funding. And this helps DEQ's 319 program to track funding status beyond the information above. And that information above just shows the overall budget and spending on completed work. Whereas this table helps anticipate funding needs early and prioritizes various funding requests that we get across the state. So this is important because our team doesn't have access to DCR system. So the only way we know the status of the allocation of funds is from the quarterly reports and the progress reviews. So this will help us understand what's going on with your funds beyond just how much you've spent and been reimbursed for. So similar to the task in the A1, this table has this reporting period, and then it has a cumulative to date section. And I will focus on this cumulative to date section. And I'm going to first define these columns, and then I'll go through some examples. So this column F of BMP funding allocated, that is what you've contracted, but it hasn't been completed or paid. So for example, if you have a BMP contract in place, but it hasn't started yet, so for example, if you're waiting for contractors, or this is a case where your project is still under construction, but it hasn't been completed or paid yet. That falls in this column. Now, the next column is BMP funding unallocated. Now, that's the funding available that you have to contract with new interested participants. And then the last column is the total funding amount that you've completed and paid. So the BMPs have been constructed, you have requested, you've paid them, and you've requested reimbursement. So this sheet allows you to enter the data yourself, or you can pull from other existing, in some of these you can pull from other existing data in the form to tabulate the numbers. So let's go through that. The first one, again, BMP amount allocated. You enter that based on your BMP contracts. So that is a hard enter field. And then going over to the completed and paid, I'll click on here, you can actually pull from the tables above. So row 68 is 319 ag funds, and I have it automatically pulling from F29, which is the ag cumulative expenditures. So that's nice to be able to pull from data that's already there, because you need those to align, because obviously if it's cumulative expenditures, that's how much you've been paid for ag BMPs, and that's what this is representing. Now let's go over to BMP funding unallocated. This is where you, and again, this is what you have available to support new participants that might request BMPs. So this can be calculated where you have your starting overall budget, which you can pull from above. Again, this is ag. So the starting overall budget for ag here is $150,000. So pulling from B29. Whoop, trying to go down here. Okay, so you have the $150,000. From that, you need to remove how much you've allocated in your BMP contracts, how much you've contracted. So F68, you remove the $50,000, and then you remove the amount that's already been completed and paid. So all of that will show you have $65,000 available for new participants. And what we should see, these three columns should combine to your overall budget. So I highlighted these 3 columns, and the bottom right, very small here at the bottom of Excel, it automatically sums it for you. So it shows those 3 in total is $150,000, which matches that original budget for ag BMPs. Let me go in here. So we have a comments field as well, and we really encourage you to provide details to help explain things, such as big allocations, timing, or other key information to help us understand. So I wanted to go over these examples. So row 68 for ag shows that they have $50,000 allocated already. So that's what's been contracted, but not constructed yet. And they have $65,000 unallocated. And they noted that they likely won't be able to use all that unallocated, that $65,000, before the current end date. And then this example, the end date is about 9 months away. So that information helps us consider if we should extend the project end date, or maybe we need to have conversations about, is ag be successful in this area? Maybe it's just a little slow to start and you need more time, so an end date would help with that. Or if you don't think you're going to use it, then maybe we need to shift those funds to other BMPs, or maybe to another project that can readily use those funds. So just seeing that 65 there, obviously we're going to know, well, they have 9 months left. Are they going to be able to allocate and spend this in those 9 months? But that comment really helps us key into what's going on. So let's go down to row 70 for septic. It shows that they are fully allocated. You don't see any data in the unallocated field here. So they don't have any funds for new participants. That might be okay. But in this example, in the note, we see that they've specified the contracts written, and then how much completed and paid, and they actually have a wait list for projects. So that is helpful to know that beyond their funding, they have even more interest. So we should have conversations about, do they need septic funds, additional septic funds to help cover those waitlisted people? So that note is very helpful. And then row 72 for urban shows they have $95,000 or $9,500 available unallocated, and they noted that they should be able to allocate it by the end of the year. So that's helpful to know. Also, if they can allocate it by the end of the year, maybe we should have discussions about the need and timing for additional funds in the future, how their end date is going, lots of considerations. So again, this table really shows the project status beyond the tables above that only show the amount remaining in the budget. And so again, this helps because we don't have access to tracking allocations. And so this shows really what's in the pipeline for future work and expenditures. That helps us plan and manage our current funds and consider future funding needs. And that can really help us avoid a lapse in funding. So I know this was really inconsistently used in the past. So that's why I wanted to take time here to go over it. It's not the easiest thing, but we will work with you. We're going to look for it in the Q3 submittals, and we can help get this right going forward. So we'll have time for Q&A here. Let me just get through the rest of these slides. Hang on one second. Let me get to back to the PowerPoint. Okay, back to the PowerPoint here. Now, just a few clarifications. You know, we took a lot of time and effort to convert these to a new format, and we tried our best to pull existing data from the previous quarterly reports. And like I said, when the spreadsheet was open, really look for missing data that's never been provided in past reporting. Please add it. And also review all data points already inputted in there. We use previous quarterly reports. If you find any issues, correct it and note why, or work with your regional coordinator to make sure it's right going forward. And like I said, there's a learning curve with this, so we're all going to get familiar with these new reporting forms, and hopefully in the end it's going to save us all time and provide the necessary data to get your reimbursements. So let me go. I have one more slide here about quarterly reporting. We'll get through that, have a Q&A, and then we can see if all questions are answered, or maybe we need another meeting about it. So next topic about quarterly reporting is documentation standards. So your quarterly reports need to provide sufficient documentation to support the requested reimbursement amount. This is because ultimately DEQ can get audited, since 319H funding is federal funding from EPA, and that has certain documentation standards. So reporting needs to provide clear and concise documentation so it's easy to understand the information provided, both in the reporting forms and then identifying where the numbers come from in the supporting documentation. And all expenditures really need reasonable proof. And so proof for technical assistance activities can be timesheets, and it needs to show the individuals that worked on it, the dates, the hours, rates, that all combine to the total you're requesting to be reimbursed. Travel, it should show the dates within the quarter, the mileage, the rate, the reason. If you have supply costs, provide your receipts. If you have contractors, provide invoices to support it. And then if you do have indirect, it's really helpful. Show your calculations so we can know where it came from when we review it. Now, for proof of completed BMPs, similar to the reporting forms, we're trying to standardize and gain efficiencies to reduce the workload preparing the supporting documentation. No, it takes time. So we worked with DCR to prepare a LOGI report for agreements with district involvement, and that can serve as your proof of completed BMPs. So that is applicable to agreements that have non-districts that lead, but you have a partner that's a district. You should be able to work with them to get access to the LOGI report, and they can pull it for you every quarterly reporting time. So if you don't have Soil and Water Conservation District involvement, then you still need to provide the completed BMP contracts with all the signatures and a proof of payment, and in some cases, proof of BMP warehouse submittal. Did want to note our BMP contract retention policy, which I briefly mentioned earlier. Section 5.2 of the BMP guidelines specifies that subrecipients must maintain documentation, and that includes assigned BMP contracts for 3 years beyond the lifespan of the project. And so that includes, like I said, the BMP contracts, parts 1 through 3, your O&M plans, landowner agreements, and so on. Also, a reminder that DEQ cannot retain personally identifiable information, and PII includes social security numbers, addresses, lat long, banking information, all that private information you don't want shared out there. So if you have to submit a document to us with that information, it should be redacted. But for districts that can send the LOGI report as proof of completed BMPs, that means you don't have to send us your BMP contract, but you have to keep that contract in your records. The since you're not sending it to DEQ, you do not need to redact it unless you have some sort of policy in your organization. But we're just saying that it needs to be redacted if it comes to DEQ. Also, please don't provide copies of checks that has the banking information. Instead, you can provide QuickBooks or other statement showing the payment details that doesn't have a PII. I know this is a lot, so we are working on preparing a reporting checklist. The reporting form B1 does have a list of the minimum information needed to back up the supporting documentation, like the receipts and invoices, like I mentioned earlier. But I think it'd be really helpful to have a standardized checklist. So we're working on that. And once it's ready, we'll send it out to you guys, so stay tuned. Okay, now we have time for Q&A.
This is Deanna from Piedmont again. On the residential septic grants for the TA, other than the personnel time or mileage, or, you know, if we're getting flyers printed or whatever, all that can go on a separate spreadsheet that we normally have provided in the past. But the BMP match for that actual BMP, do we have to provide anything for that, like a copy of the invoice from the contractor? That I'm a little confused about that.
The Logi report it has columns for the total cost and then amount of 319H funding. So based on that, we can see how much was contributed for the cost share. So it'll be covered in the Logi report.
Okay, great, thanks.
You're welcome. All right, Siobhan, I see your hand raised. You can unmute.
Okay, I'm wondering if you can go back to the reporting form in the staff section, please. I'm trying to open ours up and just look at it at the same time, but if you can look at that.
Opening it up now. Are you talking B1?
Yes, I think so. If you could you scroll the screen to the right so I can see what all those little details are, like what you want in the yellow section? Okay.
Yeah. These are the minimum standards I mentioned earlier that are in here.
Okay.
But like I said, I really think a checklist would be beneficial. So that's what we're working on to expand what we mean there. But we wanted to at least provide that to try and help explain what we're looking for.
Right. So I think Clinch Valley, we've always just submitted our timesheet that is associated with our 319 projects. And I believe it has all of that information that you're asking for. So in that yellow area, we'll just say see timesheet. Is that like what you're expecting to see? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And then it's nice when, it's in a spreadsheet there, you can see the calculations and whatnot. But yeah, I've seen yours and that fits the bill.
Okay, thank you so much.
And we see a variety across the state. If you don't have a spreadsheet with it, but you have an internal tracking system and you provide that as a PDF, we can work with it as well. But yeah, just mentioning there in the yellow, see attached timesheet or wherever it is, and then making sure it has the key information so we know who worked on it and how many hours and whatnot.
Okay, sorry, I have one other question. I think in the past when we completed a project, we submitted photographs of like the project, and are you guys still looking for that? Because we do have one that we're completed for this quarterly.
Oh, yes. We love the photos. It's great. So,
Always.
yeah.
And if you could like put in the title of the photo, like kind of maybe what it is and where ish would be great. Because a lot of times over time, that information gets lost and we're like, we have no idea where this came from or what project or what watershed or.
Yeah, totally. Give it another minute here in case anyone else would like to chime in.
Hear me?
Yes.
Hey, I was just going to say, Sarah had a good question in the chat. She was asking if the TA for the 319 is only matched, do you still need detailed timesheets and mileage records? And so, yes, so we need the same documentation for match as we would for any 319 funded expenditures. Hopefully that answers the question there.
Okay. Well, like I said, we'll have time for any follow-up questions about this. And like I said, there's a learning curve, so you're going to really get into those forms here with the Q3 submittal upcoming in a few weeks. So our regional coordinators are ready to work through this with you. So if you have questions along the way, highly encourage you to send them a draft before, make sure it's good to go. But yeah, we're hoping this will improve the process once we get it down. So let's move on to mapping tools. So I wanted to have a little time to plug our great mapping tools from DEQ, the Environmental Data Mapper, which I link here, and I'm going to switch over to the web browser real quick. Hang on 1 second, please. Okay, so I loaded EDM. It'll always have this like terms of use screen. You say you agree. Let's see, this is kind of zooming weird. Let me zoom out a little bit and hopefully it'll help. There we go. Okay, so I want to show you a few items here in our layers that can be helpful. We have layers for IP areas, so you can help determine if a certain location is within your applicable IP area. So for example, you can search an address here. So that took us to DEQ's office in Richmond. And then what you can do, you can go over here to the right with DEQ data layers. You scroll down, TMDL IP watershed layers, expand that drop down. And you can click on implementation watersheds. And that will show the areas with IPs, either approved or in progress. So where our office is, you can click here, choose the city, but you can scroll over and see the different, the watershed, James River and tributary, City of Richmond. It shows it's eligible for 319 and it has a link to the actual IP that'll open in a different tab. So that's really handy. Also, an aspect, as we talked about with septic, is fiscal stress. So in the same TMDL IPD watershed layers, you can go down and click county fiscal stress, which can get a little hard to see. So sometimes you have to toggle between different layers. So now I'm just displaying county fiscal stress. You see where we are in downtown. You can click here, click over, and it shows Richmond above average fiscal stress. So that can help you with your septic BMPs. So let me go ahead and undo that. We also have layers for the TMDL watersheds across the state. Other sections have, you can add the layer for impaired waterways. You go under water quality assessment. Let me drop down that. Let's look at the rivers. So sometimes these layers, you see how I'm zoomed out and nothing is showing up. That's just because you need to zoom in. So if you zoom in a little bit here, give it time to load. There we go. So it shows all our waterways there, and then the dark red, it shows you where it's impaired. Also,
can you click on one of those and
yeah,
just show them what comes up in the box?
There we go. So Broad Rock Creek, excuse me, shows the mileage, and it has lots of good information. Causes, E. coli. Yeah, so very handy. Another thing that might be applicable, go down, let's see, DEQ layers. Reference admin, you can, there's a layer for districts. We have DEQ regions, and so on. So highly recommend using this. It's a really great tool. We use it a lot, so just want to take a little bit of time to show you all. I'll get back to the PowerPoint here. Second, let me share.
Hey, Melissa, while you're there, I just wanted to reiterate, one of the things that in my experience that I know a lot of partners have used that tool for is if you don't have access to mapping, you can use that web page and actually type in an address in the upper left-hand corner and turn on the IP layer. And then you can see if that address or that location where you're thinking BMP might be going in to make sure it's within the IP boundary. So that's a really good, quick way to go in and kind of verify that if you don't have access to other mapping tools.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, well, our next topic is long-term planning. And quite a few topics to go over here, but I did want to quickly give a brief overview of the 319H grant funding process. So DEQ, we apply for this funding from EPA annually. And that is tied to our request for application, our RFA process. So that's why we have the RFA application period every summer. And then we review the applications, decide on who will select and how much, and then we will submit our application that includes those selections in our to EPA in the winter to get awarded the following year. So for example, the RFA we released this summer is called the FY25 RFA because DEQ won't actually get awarded that funding until fall 2025. So once we are awarded the funding from EPA, DEQ has to spend it within 5 years before it expires. So in those 5 years, we issue these subrecipient agreements with you all to implement the projects to improve water quality. So often our subrecipient agreements have funding from several different funding years. So DEQ, we carefully track this to ensure all our funding gets spent before it expires, because if it does expire, we have to send it back to EPA. And we want to avoid that because we want the money going to you guys and actually implementing projects. So to track all this, we really consider the status of the funds, including the balance and expiration. So now thinking about the funding expiration, part of managing that is us, DEQ, checking in with you all about status. So sometimes your regional coordinators will reach out to you when you have funding that will expire next year to see, check in and see how likely it is to be spent out. So for example, currently we have funding from FY20 and that expires in August of 2025. So we're already tracking the status of those funds. And so we've already reached out to the subrecipients that have that funding remaining and to ensure it gets all spent. And so if someone evaluates their project and they realize they can't spend it all, then DEQ can work to get it assigned to another subrecipient that has a capacity to spend it. So again, we don't risk having to send it back to EPA. And this is why I went into detail about the that allocated, unallocated table in Form B1 really helps evaluate the status of remaining funds. So for example, if you have funding that's soon it's going to expire, then that table can tell us how much of that has already been contracted versus how much is available for new participants. And that could mean you need more time to spend that down. Now moving on to modifications. So in order to make changes to your agreements, and that can include reassigning funds, extending your end date, adding funds, and so on, we have to complete a formal agreement modification. And that's really because this is it's contractual terms. And so we have to go through the formal process. So it involves a lot of updates, a lot of different approvals from various groups. And we currently estimate the mod process can take about 6 months, but it depends on the type of change, but that's a safe estimate. So we're really asking you to think ahead. Please don't wait to tell us that you need to change. And I will note there are some changes that are minor modifications that don't require the formal process, but there's certain and specific requirements those have to meet, and we're aware of that. We will we consider that and let you know if it qualifies. So like I said, with your budgets, recommend considering them early and often. So really take advantage of your quarterly reports and your semi-annual progress reviews with your regional coordinators to assess your current budget, and also think about your future funding needs. And of course, we understand this is hard. Things are super variable. It really depends on participant interest. Also, I know some areas really have issues with contractor availability, so things take time. But we can work with estimates. It's just important to think ahead for this mod process. So you can consider how you don't want to wait until you have a low amount in your budget. So say $20,000 left, and then all of a sudden you have a lot of interest but not enough funds. Really pay attention once you're down to a certain amount in your budget. So depending on your overall budget, maybe that's if you have $50,000 left. You need to really start paying attention. And then with that, it's, well, $50,000, what does that mean? How much of that is allocated? And then how much is unallocated, so available for new participants? And that's all tracked in the B1 and can be considered during this. So having those targets of when you know you need to start really thinking about things, that depends on the project. But it's good to set that and be aware of. Now, considering additional funding for existing agreements, there's a couple ways for you to get additional funding. And it really key is it depends on the IP area. Now, historically, the program had a separate continuing funding RFA process for existing subrecipients to apply for additional funds during around the time of the RFA. And we're moving away from that separate continuing funding RFA process, and we want to utilize the options listed here. So that's focusing more on modifications to existing agreements, or just submitting to the standard RFA. So for modifications, this is applicable if you have a current agreement and you want more funding for BMPs in that same IP area. And you can request this at any time during the year. Whereas you would use a new RFA application, and that would be applicable to current agreements, and you want money, but you want to work in a new IP area. And so you would apply to the standard RFA process, and that only occurs once per year. So this new process of focusing on modifications is intended to get the funding out sooner and reduce paperwork for everyone. So it allows for requests as the need arises instead of waiting for that annual application period. Also, the mod process takes less time than the RFA process. So, of course, funding is subject to change based on availability. But like I said earlier, the sooner you know and you let us know, the sooner we can get the process going to issue funding. So, scroll down. The next topic here real quick is considerations during the last year of your agreement. So again, back to the budget, thinking about if you will or will not spend all of it. And if you won't use all of the budget, then let us know as soon as possible so we can try and maybe you have room to get an extension, or maybe we need to reassign it to someone else. And again, that takes time, so sooner is better. Last year, really thinking about making sure you're completing your deliverables, consider closeout reporting and final reporting due dates. And if the project's successful and you have community interest and need, do you want to extend? Do you want to add funding? Then maybe you can pursue a modification. Also consider if maybe your IP area has been successful and you know of other IP areas nearby that now want to implement this. Well, okay, let's do that. Let's apply to the next RFA and get some work done over there. So all of this should be considered during the last year. Your regional coordinators can help guide you through these steps and any necessary requirements. So then the last topic is a general status of current funding. As we all know, the 319H funding is limited and we are getting more interest. And so we're becoming more competitive. This year's RFA advertised $1.5 million in available funds. And currently we're reviewing applications and the request is nearly $2 million. Also, currently we have a backlog of existing subrecipients, you all, requesting additional funding, and that backlog is about $300,000. So we're working to get this all done, but it is, of course, we're asking you to let us know early, but that 6 month is an estimate. So there is possible waiting longer. But we'll try and avoid that, of course. But the sooner you're on the list, the better to get that going. So now we've covered a whole lot here. And there will be a Q&A session here soon. But now I wanted to open to you all where you can ask questions. Also wanted to have an open discussion time if there's anything that you want to talk to each other about. Like recently we received a request for you all to talk with other partners about your interactions with VDH. For example, how successful are you with getting VDH referrals? And also, there's been turnover, so how do you build connections again after all the changes? So you guys can go ahead and either raise your hand or unmute, but I'll just give it some time you guys to talk about some things. I guess, can anyone give any input about VDH and how things have been working with you lately with them? With the referrals or just trying to build connections with them? Any input about that?
This is Lisa from Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water District. We are very fortunate with our local VDH offices. They refer folks to us quite a bit. Particularly in one of our watersheds, we actually have to do very little outreach because of the referrals that we receive from VDH. They kind of constantly send folks our way. We also have pretty good rapport with local contractors who know about our programs, you know, and when they get calls or VDH gets a call from folks that are, you know, especially very low income and cannot afford to repair their systems, they know to direct them to us, you know, and it works both ways. VDH obviously wants these environmental problems solved. We want to spend our money. So it's great for everybody all around. So I would encourage other districts or other organizations that don't have a lot of help from VDH to, you know, kind of keep them in the loop. We send out an email at the start of every new fiscal year with, you know, updated applications. We offer to print the applications for them and drop them off, so they just have like a stack of them at their offices. We give them flyers to hang on their bulletin boards, and we just try to really keep them engaged and let them know, hey, we still have funding. Don't forget about us. And I think that's been, you know, relatively inexpensive, low cost outreach for our program. We honestly get more referrals probably from VDH than any other outreach materials that we've done. So that's been our experience, has been very positive.
This is Louis at the Middle Peninsula. One thing that you all may want to consult with VDH on, we've been running septic repair programs since 1996, and over the last 3 years, we have seen a significant uptick in voluntary upgrades. And by the time the homeowner shows up asking for financial help, they will have already paid the AOSC to do the voluntary upgrade. And that does not easily translate over to the septic repairs based off of the tables that you all have set up, since it's a voluntary upgrade. And we have had many cases where the homeowner has had to stop and re-incur costs a second time to unwind the voluntary upgrade to then reapply for a septic repair permit to be able to access the funding. So most of that is driven by the AOSEs, you know, so when they are commissioned, they look at the job and they try to evaluate what is the path of least resistance that gets the problem solved quicker for the homeowner. And they're not generally aware that voluntary upgrades will not translate over to septic repair world for funding. That is a growing major problem right now.
This is Deanna at the Piedmont District, and so we're a pretty rural district. We've had a lot of turnover in each of the 3 counties that we work in their health departments. So all new folks there It seems like we're constantly trying to educate them about this program. I like Lisa's idea of taking some copies of the application by, so we may do that. But, you know, we reached out to them and let them know about our programs and reminded them of that, offered to meet with them. I think they wear a lot of hats in these rural counties. It's not just septic and water permits. It's health inspections at restaurants, food facilities, et cetera. So they have a lot of different workload, maybe than more in an urban area. We also have had a greater success with our contractors, word of mouth with our contractors. And again, each year we notify them, send out a letter, just reminding them of the program. And then we have done targeted mailings in neighborhoods, and that we've been doing that for several years. But this past fall season, late summer, I guess because it was kind of wet here, it generated a lot of septic pump outs. So word of mouth is helpful too. And that's been our experience with some outreach. And, you know, then we use the typical other outreach venues like our website, social media, newspaper announcements, community service announcements. Each of your extension offices should have a water testing clinic coming up at some point in the next 2 or 3 years, maybe in this next year. They kind of on a rotation basis. So we have materials available for when residents drop off water samples or pick up the test kit at the extension office. And we're co-located with our extension office here in Prince Edward County. So that's been very helpful. But that's another venue you could explore about getting the word out. We've done workshops before, really for the effort that it takes to put one together, and you have 10 people, it's probably not cost efficient for staff time to do that. But those are some of the things that we have done.
Thanks, Deanna. And thanks all. And Louie, I noted that feedback about what you're seeing lately. That's really helpful to know. Just any other?
Could there be training for the ASOEs that would help, or some kind of outreach that we could do to that subset of individuals that would help with that, so that when they're approached or engaged, they would know, like, hey, you're in this area, maybe I need to reach out to certain, folks, or I need to not pursue this completely, like you said, and you're having to unravel it, Louie. Like, so I don't know if there's some kind of information we can provide or training or something.
It's probably, and I've started to have these conversations, but I think agency to agency conversation will help fix it. It's probably more a conversation with Lance Gregory to say, Lance, we've got money on the DEQ side to help folks with failing septic systems. Can you all amend your voluntary upgrade to include a provision that recognizes that even though it's a voluntary upgrade, it's still repairing something voluntarily that would then allow it to easily cross over, because that's one change that VDH could make that's ubiquitous, and you would not need to go back to the AOSEs and do the educational training, because that's having to hit every single one of them. The main problem is that the paper doesn't show up from VDH that says this is a repair. It shows up and says it's a voluntary upgrade.
Okay. We can have those conversations with Lance.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Yes, any other topics? Also, we'll open it up on the last slide of the long-term planning. Any questions there? Oh, Lisa raised her hand. You can go ahead.
This is a a little bit off of what we're talking about now, but something that I have a question, and I also just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. The FY25 contract documents that were released as part of the new guidelines and everything for this year. We noticed recently that the contract part 2 now includes a line for the participant to sign after the project has been approved. This is much like the VAX. If any partners are doing the VAX program, as you all know, DCR now requires us to have a participant signature on the DCR VAX contract part 2, which was new for FY25. We noticed that participant signature line is now on the DEQ part 2. So I just wanted to clarify that we are required now to get a participant signature after approval. That is correct?
Yes, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. So on that note, we had a recent approval for our DEQ septic program just a couple of days ago. And when we downloaded the DEQ contract part 2 that is available if you use the DCR tracking program. So if you're in the forms under your participant's contract, we noticed that the form that is currently uploaded into the DCR tracking program is not the new FY25 form. Just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. We were kind of surprised by that. We, went and looked at it, and the participant signature line was not there. It's the old form. We contacted Jen Edwards at DCR to get the new form uploaded. They said they're working on it. It could take up to a month, though, for them to get that up there. So the thing that we're going to do, I guess, in the meantime is we're going to use the FY25 form that was released by DEQ, and we're going to PDF it, and we're just going to have to manually type in all the information until they get that fixed. But I just wanted to let everyone know, if you utilize that DEQ form, it's the old form right now.
Yeah, thank you. I was on those emails too, Lisa.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. And we we notified you guys around July along with DCR about all the changes, provided all the links. So they'll need to update it. We thought it was updated, so apologies, it's not there. Our website has been updated since July 1st, so you can always lean on that, but I know it doesn't help with what you were saying. So that's unfortunate. But I looked back and double checked all the email timestamps to make sure we got it out on time. But we'll obviously stay in communication with Jen to make sure hopefully that can get done as possible.
Thanks. Yep.
Anyone else? Afi?
Yes, this is a separate topic, but I was looking at your map, right? The link that you gave here. I don't see I was trying to look at the IPs and I can't see that layer. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. So I don't know if this is a good time or I can try it later, but.
Yeah, we have time. I can do that. It doesn't hurt to, there's lots of layers. So let me share my screen real quick. And so you go under DEQ data layer, scroll down to TMDL IP watershed layers, and you have to click the little triangle to expand it down.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's what. Okay. I see it now. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem.
Hey, Melissa, this is Stephanie. On my end, I can't hear any audio. I'm not sure if you.
Yep, thank you. I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Ashley gets to hear me again. So yeah, wrap up and reminders. So as I said earlier, the guidelines and specifications are updated every 2 years. So it'll come out again in 2026. But part of that is working with a committee of both internal DEQ people and external partners. So fall of 2025, I'll reach out to you all to see if you have interest in time. That's where we can get your feedback of what you're seeing with actually implementing this program, how we can improve our guidelines. So that working in fall 2025 gives us time to meet several times. We can make updates. You have time to review the updates. Also, it gives us time to gather any data so we can track to have the updates live by July 2026. So we also want to get back on track with having this partners meeting every year. So I'm hoping we can have it next summer sometime. We'll still do a poll to see, we want as many people to join as possible. So we'll figure out the timing, but of course, bring your ideas. We want to make this as effective and best use possible of your time. So some reminders with the new reporting forms, please use that for your 24 Q3 quarterly report. Also, updated septic guidelines are due every August. I know we're already engaging with you all about that. So if any are open, please work with your regional coordinator to get those updated. Also, QAP updates for those doing water quality monitoring. If you extend your agreement, you need to make sure you update your QAP as well to reflect any changes. Okay, so the meeting materials will be provided after the meeting. I'll send a recording, send a PowerPoint. We're going to send an attendee list as well, and it'll have contact information so you guys can reach out to each other with any guidance or support. Also, we'll send an anonymous meeting survey after the meeting. We're really looking for feedback about how today went, the topics. We want to make sure future meetings are worth your time. So please, if you have time, fill out that survey. And quickly, I'll just mention we are fully staffed, which is really great. Here's all our contact information of our team. One note, Kim and Madison are both covering the Valley region, but Madison is east of 81 basically, and Kim is west. All our contact information is on our website, of course. And then we have our NPS grants email as a tool as well. So our last Q&A, I do see chat about when the recording, it will be available to everyone. I'm hoping to get you all these materials within a week. So it should be a link to the recording. So any other questions about things we covered today? Also, you can use this time to bring up any other topics like we did for the open discussion. And if it doesn't come to mind during this meeting, we are here. Ask the questions and we'll do our best to answer quickly and get things resolved. So again, don't hesitate if you think of something or if when you get these materials after you have follow-up questions, please reach out. Okay, well, I just want to thank you again for attending. And of course, thank you for all your hard work with this program. It's so awesome to see everything you guys are doing. So thank you. And again, I'll provide these materials in the coming days. And here's my contact information. And of course, the NPS grants email, And we'll send out the survey here soon. So again, thank you for your time, and yay, we're ending early. So get some time back. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.